Welcome to Accommodate This. In today's video, I discuss the influence of Andrew Wakefield, a former neurologist from the UK. In 1998, he published an article claiming a link between the MMR vaccine and autism, which not only contributed to severe stigma against the autistic community, but also created a wildfire of anti-vax culture around the world. His name is one of the most infamous in the autistic community, and therefore it's important for everyone to know his story. And now that you know why we're here, let's get into the topic for this video, Andrew Wakefield. Andrew Wakefield was a neurologist at an English monastery, a general practitioner for the Canadian Red Cross, and a fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons. From 1986 to 1989, he was part of a team at the University of Toronto researching tissue rejection problems with small intestine transplantation. He continued his studies under a fellowship from Wellcome Trust, which is the same trust that sponsored the Spectrum 10K project. I talked a little bit about that project in my video on Sir Simon Baron-Cohen. In 1993, while Wakefield was performing research for the Royal Free Hospital in London, he published reports claiming the measles virus causes Crohn's disease. And then a couple years later, he wrote an article for The Lancet, a British medical journal, claiming to have found a link between the measles vaccine and Crohn's disease. And then subsequent research failed to confirm his hypotheses, and peer-reviewed studies concluded that neither the measles virus nor MMR vaccine caused Crohn's disease. Then in 1995, Wakefield was approached by Rosemary Kessick, the mother of an autistic child and CEO of the UK-based charity known as Allergy-Induced Autism, or AIA. She claimed to be seeking help with her son's bowel problems. Wakefield was also contacted that year by the lawyer Richard Barr, who hired Wakefield as an expert witness in a class action lawsuit against alleged vaccine damage. Wakefield was given an initial £55,000 to fund initial stages of his research, covering £150 per hour plus expenses, and he was expected to create evidence for the case. He undertook a study of 12 children, some of whom were not autistic, although he claimed otherwise, to research his conclusion that the MMR vaccine was linked to autism. In total, the lawyers responsible for the lawsuit paid Wakefield more than £400,000, which he'd not previously disclosed before having his findings published in The Lancet in 1998. In his article, Wakefield claimed there was a link between the MMR vaccine and colitis, and a link between a novel form of enterocolitis and autism that he later called autistic enterocolitis. Together, these claims were meant to show a link between the MMR vaccine and autism, although The Lancet said ahead of publication that there was no proof of a causal connection. Wakefield called for the suspension of the triple MMR vaccine until more research could be done, and that's what happened. So Wakefield received a lot of publicity around the study and was made a senior lecturer and honorary consultant for experimental gastroenterology at the Royal Free Hospital and University College School of Medicine. His claims led to a sharp decline in vaccinations that resulted in a number of measles outbreaks and deaths around the world. Suspicions of his research methods soon arose when other researchers were unable to reproduce his findings. After refusing to validate his claims with a controlled study, Wakefield was asked to leave the Royal Free Hospital in 2001. He moved to the United States soon after, and in 2004, he co-founded Thoughtful House in Austin, Texas, which was later renamed to Johnson Center for Children Health and Development. That same year, his article from The Lancet was retracted, with the editor saying the journal had been deceived, and his article was utterly false and entirely flawed. Later, in 2004, Wakefield attempted to patent his own version of a single measles vaccine. A documentary found his own reports from studies he completed while at the Royal Free Hospital contradicted his claims. Wakefield continued to gain quite the following, including connections with celebrity personalities. His theories inspired RFK Jr. to write a controversial article for Rolling Stone and the online magazine Salon in 2005, and his article was about thimerosal and autism. In 2008, Jenny McCarthy and Jim Carrey, who were seeing each other at the time, organized a rally at the Washington Memorial called Green Our Vaccines. RFK Jr. was a keynote speaker at that rally, which was rooted in concerns about vaccine safety related to the use of thimerosal, a mercury-based substance that used to be commonly used in the creation of vaccines. This was a conspiracy theory spread by the Geyers, which I talked about in the video on Mark and David Geyer. However, the CDC maintains that there is no link between thimerosal and autism. Other speakers at that rally included Jim Carrey, Dr. Jay Gordon, Dr. Boyd Haley, and Jenny McCarthy. The event was organized by Talk About Curing Autism, or TACA, now called the Autism Community in Action, Generation Rescue, Healing Every Autistic Life, or HEAL, now called Helping Enrich Autistic Lives, and Moms Against Mercury. In 2009, Brian Deere of the Sunday Times reported that Wakefield had fixed the results and manipulated patient data to create the appearance of a link with autism for the Lancet article. Wakefield denied these allegations and filed a complaint, but never pursued his complaint, which was deemed false and disingenuous in all material respects. The year 2010 was a busy one for Wakefield. The General Medical Council found him guilty of 4 counts of dishonesty and 12 counts of abuse of developmentally disabled children. The council said he acted dishonestly and irresponsibly with callous disregard for the children involved in his study, which included unnecessary and invasive tests. As a result, Wakefield was struck off the medical register, meaning he could no longer practice medicine in the UK. He is not licensed in the United States. Wakefield used the council's critiques to name his autobiography, Callous Disregard, which he published with a foreword by Jenny McCarthy. That same year, Wakefield established the Strategic Autism Initiative, which poses as a nonprofit research facility intended to study autism. And this is just one of many high-ranking positions that he secured with anti-vax organizations, such as director of a company called Medical Interventions for Autism and another called the Autism Media Channel. In 2011, the Washington Post discovered one of the fathers of one of the boys in the study was working with Wakefield and planned to launch a venture on the back of the MMR vaccination scare that would profit from new medical tests and litigation-driven testing. The paper reported that Wakefield could make more than $43 million a year from diagnostic kits for the new condition that Wakefield had branded as autistic enterocolitis. Salon retracted RFK Jr.'s article about thimerosal and autism that same year after receiving criticism about its accuracy. In 2016, Wakefield directed the anti-vax film called Vaxxed, From Cover-Up to Catastrophe, which was produced by Del Bigtree. The film was removed from the Tribeca Film Festival by Robert De Niro, a co-founder of the festival and whose son is autistic. Ian Lipkin of the Wall Street Journal said about the film, "If Vaxxed had been submitted as science fiction, it would merit attention for its storyline, character development, and dialogue. But as a documentary, it misrepresents what science knows about autism, undermines public confidence in the safety and efficacy of vaccines, and attacks the integrity of legitimate scientists and public health officials." To no one's surprise, Wakefield was initially supported by Donald Trump, who appeared with him in inauguration photos and mentioned him in his 2015 presidential campaign. In 2016, Wakefield was one of 4 anti-vaccine campaigners who met with Trump for 45 minutes. He also attended one of Trump's inauguration balls after winning the presidency in 2016. However, with the emergence of a measles epidemic in 2017, Trump began to distance himself. Later, Wakefield regained prominence during the COVID-19 pandemic as his fraudulent ideas about the dangers of vaccines were resurrected by anti-vaxxers such as RFK Jr., who dangerously suggested treating COVID-19 with ivermectin, an anti-parasitic drug, and hydroxychloroquine, an anti-malaria drug. The claims that those drugs could treat or prevent COVID-19 are false and could actually cause serious heart problems. In 2019, Vaxxed 2, The People's Truth, was released in the United States. This sequel was produced by RFK Jr., and it continued to push the myth that there is a vaccine injury epidemic. If you watched RFK's speech in April 2025, that terminology should sound very familiar. In 2020, Brian Deere published a detailed book about Wakefield and his lies in the book called The Doctor Who Fooled the World. But this was not enough to stop the momentum that Wakefield had started. In 2024, Vaxxed 3, Authorized to Kill, was released by Children's Health Defense, the production arm of RFK Jr.'s organization. In 2025, journalist Brian Deere identified RFK Jr., Andrew Wakefield, and Del Bigtree as the core leaders of the anti-vaccine movement. As health secretary, RFK Jr. has committed to finding the cause of autism by September 2025, which is suspiciously a non-scientific approach. He relies on the lies from Andrew Wakefield and has no scruples about spreading his own lies. For instance, just in the last couple of weeks, RFK Jr. lied to Congress and the American people, saying that Andrew Wakefield's ideas were legitimate. He attempted to strengthen his argument by falsely claiming that Wakefield was found to be telling the truth in court after countersuing and winning back millions of dollars. These claims are false. Wakefield has not won any of the counter cases that he filed, including his cases against the British Medical Journal and against Brian Deere. However, Wakefield has failed multiple times to demonstrate the validity of his claims in court, and has lost more money in lawsuits than he's made. Considering the barrage of lies RFK Jr. has spread this year alone, chances are the findings from his research project will point to one or more of the debunked conspiracy theories found in the Vaxxed trilogy, and maybe even some new ones. Unfortunately, scientific fraud is not considered a criminal offense, and Wakefield's lies, though harmful to public health, are also not illegal. So he and other conspirators are free to spread whatever lies they want without the risk of jail time. However, it is illegal to lie to Congress, which is exactly what RFK Jr. did. I talk about the legality of lies in my lies video, which you can see here. But of course, there will be very little accountability, if any, for his lies. Currently in the United States, the Department of Justice, or DOJ, is in charge of investigating and prosecuting those who lie to Congress. And unfortunately, Congress is unable to act as law enforcement, so they must rely on the executive branch, in other words, the DOJ and FBI, to prosecute violators of federal law, even when those violations are offenses against Congress. Now, the Senate can file a civil action in federal court, but the DOJ, FBI, and Senate are currently under Republican control, being led by dishonest Trump sycophants, and are unlikely to perform their duties with integrity. So it's highly unlikely that RFK Jr. will be penalized for directly lying to Congress. Scientific ethics are monitored by the Office for Human Research Protections, or OHRP, and various institutional review boards, IRBs. Unfortunately, OHRP is under the HHS umbrella, which is now under RFK Jr.'s control. And he's wasted no time dismantling and rebuilding his oversight team with individuals who share his twisted views. He's already appointed David Geyer to lead the study on the causes of autism, fired the director of OHRP, folded the department known as Secretary's Advisory Committee on Human Research Protections without explanation, and appointed Jay Bhattacharya as director of the NIH. Bhattacharya is a vocal opponent to the COVID lockdowns, who co-wrote an opinion piece for the Wall Street Journal arguing against shelter-in-place orders and quarantines. He also co-authored the Great Barrington Declaration, which proposed focusing on people most at risk to achieve herd immunity, which was criticized as scientifically and ethically problematic. Though Andrew Wakefield has not been appointed to any office in the U.S. government, his influence has corrupted the minds of very powerful people who are. The longer the government refuses to punish these conspiracy theorists, the more opportunities they have to spread their lies and cause damage to the health of our nation and the world. For everyone's safety, our government should reconsider its stance on false scientific claims. I encourage you to reach out to your representatives, asking them to make scientific fraud a criminal offense once and for all. Tell your senators that RFK Jr. has lied to Congress and he needs to be held to account. And until next time, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please comment, like, and subscribe to see more content like this, or click on the video here to continue watching.